Welcome to another episode of the Mental Fight Podcast. Today, I got a chance to catch up with Erin Blanchfield, my pro debut. We talked about her career dating all the way back when she first started, which was like 7 years old. We talked about how fighting is a lifestyle and her support system. And we also talked about how she's constantly reaching for the attainable. So make sure you tune into this one.
Storm's coming.
Storm's coming.
There's a fucking storm coming, Dad!
Round one. Hey, Erin. Long time no see.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good too. Thank you.
Yes, awesome. I wanted to lead with that because, man, it's 2018. We were both early in our careers, and that was the beginning of going pro. And since then, I've been following you and just watching your career like take off and seeing you where you are now. So it's been super amazing to be able to kind of stay connected in that way. And so tell me a little bit about you, like inside of the cage, but I'm more so looking to learn a little bit about who's Erin outside of the cage.
Yeah, I think in the cage, I'm definitely a very focused fighter. I feel like I'm very technical. I really I think that's something I hold in high regards just in my training and everything too, even. Especially because I'm not the biggest for my weight class. So I think being technical is something I always really focus on. And then I think that even carries on me without outside the cage. I think I'm a pretty focused person in general, and I know how to work hard, but I feel like especially the older I've gotten, I've kind of found a balance of being able to enjoy my life and also be a hard worker. Um, yeah, so I think that's kind of what I've been doing.
I looked it up and I knew that you were younger, but you're pretty young early off in your career. When did you get started in the combative world?
Yeah, so I started training when I was 7 years old. And I started competing kind of right a couple months after I started training. So by eight or so, I was already competing. Um, and yeah, it's something I've always kind of grown up doing. So I always competed all growing up. And then when I got a little older and I saw girls in the UFC, like Ronda Rousey and Misha Tate in them, I already had been training for a couple of years, and was I thought it was so cool and something I definitely wanted to do. So I already had been in it for so long. So right when I turned 18, I went pro.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I've always felt like I wish that I would have started earlier. Because I came from different sports before getting into MMA, and I've talked to a lot of female fighters, and I really do feel like Ronda Rousey was the catalyst to spark a lot of women's mindsets of oh yeah, I would like to do that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely did. I think any age she really kind of motivated people because I remember even watching it. I remember the first because my dad has always been a big UFC fan, so he always watched it. And then when I started training, we would watch Invictas and stuff together. And then when Strikeforce had women, I'd always watch it with him. I remember the first fight, me actually wanting to watch was the first Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey fight. And that definitely inspired me a lot because I already had been training and I knew a couple fighters. I even knew some female fighters, but I think seeing it on such a big stage like that definitely motivated me. And I think a lot of other women, honestly, any age, I think, because of how much of a star she kind of became at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you said that you started when you were 7.
Mhm.
Did you do other sports, or what kind of inspired you to get into the combative world? Or do you have family members or other people who are in the sport? What connected you?
Yeah. So before that, I had done dancing when I was really young. My mom put me in when I was 3 till I was 6. But then I kind of got tired of the dancing and I wasn't doing anything for a little bit. And then my brother, my younger brother, was already training. Because at the gym we went to, they did well, he was super young, so he was in a kids program. But they did no gi jitsu and kickboxing. But I went to go watch him train when he was 4 or so. And there was a girl at the gym, and they kind of like came from like a karate background, so everyone still kind of walked around with their belts. So I remember she had like a black belt on, and I went to my dad. I was like, oh my gosh, like girls can be black belts. Like I guess in my brain I didn't even know like girls really did it, because like my brother did it, and you always think like karate like it was like a boys thing. So when I got there and I saw that, I was like, oh, that's actually really cool. And then she like offered me like an introductory class. And then after that, I was hooked. So yeah, me and my brother have been training our entire lives. He still trains too, so we still train together all the time.
Wow, wow. So it sounds like your life has literally been fighting.
Yeah, I've never after I got into it, I didn't really do any other sports, because it was always like, oh, I'm gonna do a jiu-jitsu competition, or I'm gonna do a kickboxing fight. So it's kind of like I always kind of like stayed in, and I always loved it, and I loved getting better. So I've always kind of stayed that route.
Yeah. I definitely feel the same way. I've really enjoyed the process of feeling myself get better, and in a way it like just kind of made my mind hungrier. Like, okay, I worked on this a little bit. Now I want to like work on this too and get a little bit better in this area. Um, it literally feels like it's never ending. Like there's always something to get better at.
Oh yeah, especially in MMA, because there's so many aspects of it. It like takes up every aspect of fighting. So there's like you never can get like the best in the world at anything. So you're always like trying to be, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like a never ending like pursuit of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Uh, Obviously, it sounds like life has been such a huge part of your life. I'm really interested in this next round to kind of talk a little bit more about like how fighting has impacted your life. Maybe some things that you've learned from fighting and experiences that you've had through fighting. So next round, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. Round two. This is the time where you've made the decision that, hey, I'm fighting, and you want to bite down, and it's time to show them what you got. Fighting can literally make you or break you in many cases, or you learn a lot about yourself. Tell me a little bit about how fighting has shown up in your life. What kind of impacts have fighting left with you?
Um, I think like one of the biggest impacts for me, it's like it's given me a career that I've always, wanted. I think because I started it so young. And then when you get into like high school, and then I did go to college for a little bit, it kind of really hits you like, oh, am I gonna fight, or am I gonna like try to go and get a regular career? Is this something I really want to do? Because it takes a lot, I mean, anything you want to be successful in takes a lot, but I knew it was always something if I really wanted to do and I was willing to put in the time that I could. So um, yeah, I think that it's definitely impacted my life a lot in that sense. Um, it's given me a lot of direction, and it's given me a career that I'm really passionate about, and like honestly a lifestyle that I really love too. I love
Mm.
going to the gym, and I love everybody at my gyms, and it's given me a lot of really close. I mean, I feel like people at the gym are basically like another part, like extended family. Like it's given me that kind of relationship. I'm not one of those people that wake up and like dread going to work. I love going to the gym, and I love the flexibility that comes with being a fighter. And I know how many possibilities, because fighting is only so long. You can only do it for a little bit. It's not like a lifelong career, but I feel like I know what I could do in it and what I could pursue afterwards. So I really love the lifestyle it's given me, and like how close it's made me to the people in my life that helped me like pursue this dream.
Yeah, definitely. I remember in the beginning, like hearing, especially in jujitsu, like, this isn't a sport, this is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like, I was like, okay, I'm sure there's a lot more meaning to that. And then after a while, like, it really is. The It's a whole different mindset that you have, like, I don't know, when I'm going to my regular job versus when I'm going into the gym. Um, I just feel totally different, and it feels like I'm walking into another form of reality from everything else that's going on.
Yeah,
Um,
for
and
sure.
I love it, and I love it there too. So I definitely can connect with the pieces of that flexibility and being an athlete, and kind of just um, wanting to wake up and actually be happy about where you're going and where
Yeah.
you're spending your time.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's definitely like, I feel like it is a lifestyle in the sense that like, especially with fighting, if you're like cutting weight and stuff, you can never really like completely detach from it. Like I know even when I was going to school, like, you can go to school and then you leave and it's like you kind of like completely like detach from it. But fighting, it kind of follows you and all. That's why you really have to love it and be passionate about it, because it does follow you kind of in every aspect of your life. Like you have to miss, like if you have a fight coming up, you have to miss out on certain things to get your training sessions in, or not be able to eat certain things because you need to make weight. So it definitely impacts every aspect of your life. But it's also something that it's like, I feel like I'm like fulfilling dreams I had as a kid. So it's so worth it. And the people that do understand, make it that much more worth it too. You know, like there's always gonna be people that don't understand, but I feel like the people that I have in my life now do completely understand and they completely support me. So it definitely makes that aspect easier. And you only get so long to do it. So it's definitely, I feel like all the sacrifices are kind of worth it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, what you said as far as like, it sounds like having people around you who like validate you in your path. Like
Yeah.
everyone won't understand why you're doing what you're doing, but all it takes is for those other like-minded people to like, no, I see you, keep going at it. I can I can also see your vision for where you see your life going as
Mhm.
you know chase that dream.
For sure.
So you mentioned before that you went to college for a little bit. What would you have been doing if it wasn't fighting?
You know, it's funny. So when I was in high school, I was pretty good at science. So I went into college as a bio major, but then I started fighting professionally and I was like, what am I gonna like do with this if I do actually graduate with this? So I switched it over to like communications with a concentration. It was a communications major, but I think it was like sports media.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a sports media basically like kind of major. So I kind of studied that because I always thought like, oh, like what would I want to do after fighting? And I always thought maybe I'd like commentate or work something in that. Like I definitely would want to stay involved in fighting some way, because I just I love like kind of like everything about it, whether I'm in the cage or not. So that's what I was like going to school for.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
So you're thinking beyond the cage too, right? And that's really smart.
Yeah, I definitely always was, because even when like my parents knew, because my parents always supported me with fighting, but when I graduated high school, I didn't really want to go to college, but they really wanted me to. They're like, oh, at least if you go to college, you can pursue fighting like at the same time. Um, and I was always like, oh, once I get into the UFC, like I'll be done with everything else. Like I want to completely focus on that. But I did enjoy the time that I went there, and I feel like it did kind of help me like understand a little bit more about that aspect, and like kind of give me uh like a good understanding that you should think about what you want to do after.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, is especially with sports. Of course, we want our bodies to go as long as we mentally want to go, but sometimes it's not the case. So the reality of it is that we do have this period of time, this window to make the most out of those sort of endeavors. So it's always good to kind of have working on at the same time your next plan of action after you're physically done with the sport. But um, staying close by is still one of your passions for after fighting.
Yeah, because I know like how passionate I've been like pretty much my entire life, and even when I was like competing as a kid, I would always like to go. I'd go watch fights and stuff, and other like fighters we knew that were pros and stuff already. I always enjoyed being around the atmosphere, so I know being involved as much as I am now, and how much longer I know I'll be involved in the way I am. I know afterwards I'm still gonna, still want to be there.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Um, Fighting definitely is can be consuming, right? Even if we're working full time or part time doing something else, that fighting still finds a way to bleed into other aspects of our life. It's everywhere. So this next round, we're gonna get into. This is the part of the fight where you just leave it all out there. Um, you think about all the lessons that you've learned, or it's time to really just show up and show out. This next round is dedicated to just that, where we're going to kind of get into the quote that you shared and what that means to you. Round three. Time to leave it all out there. So your quote that you shared, I really like it. It gives me such a eloquent vibe. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. Why did you choose that quote? And tell me, what does that quote mean to you?
I chose that quote because I feel like in fighting and I get in any sport really or anything that you're passionate about in life, like you're always trying to be perfect. You're always trying to, at least for me, I feel like I want to learn every technique the perfect way, try to get every little detail of it. And when I'm drilling it, I'm trying to make sure I drill it perfect. But obviously, when you're going live and you're going against someone else who's like super skilled, it's not going to be completely perfect, but if you can drill it and train it perfect, at least you could do it as close to perfect as possible when you are doing it live. You can do it like I guess excellent, as the quote says. So I think that for me is definitely it kind of hits home, and it kind of shows you that you always need to you need to be trying. There's never you can't stay stagnant. You need to always try to pursue getting better and improving, because it's the only way you're gonna be able to stay on top and stay on the top of your game and keep growing the way that you want to.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm really, my mind really operates towards the technique too, and the reps, the time that you put into trying to perfect something. Like you, I also have that desire to want to do it right. Perfection if you can, but like you said, when it's live action, we can't like our minds have to still be able to move, flow, and go with it, and we can't stay rigid on wanting it to be perfect. But if we put our effort and energies into trying to achieve such this high standard that is very can be very unattainable in a sense that it reminds me of that other quote like shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so it definitely reminds me of that. um so even if you don't attain the unattainable, that you have still soared like probably beyond your ceiling, because
yeah.
you're striving really high.
Yeah, you always have to have. I feel like having like a super high standard always good because even if you can't completely meet that, you're always gonna be even a little. Even oh, there was another Ronda Rousey quote that I always kind of remember too. I think she was like, "Oh, I want to be. I train to be the best in the world on my worst day." I think that's another one. I actually really like that too because I feel like it kind of hits the same things. Like if you're drilling everything right and perfect, that you're when you get in there, you'll just like your body will just do it. Like you'll know to do it because you put in all that time that work ahead of time. So even if you're not feeling your best, you know that your technique is still there and it's you can trust in like your training and stuff ahead of time. Um,
Mhm.
so I feel like that's always something that I know like if you have confidence in your preparation, that it allows you to perform better when you're in there.
Definitely, definitely. Like you already know what you possess. You don't have to go in worrying about if with what doing what you already know how to do.
Yeah,
It allows you to just be able to have that self trust,
yeah,
and go out there and that's highly correlated to that self confidence piece. I can't help but to always find all these different little pathways of connecting fighting in the cage to life, right? Even when we're trying to be, even if we have a situation to where we didn't get to show up as our best self, but it's about the daily things that we're doing that builds our character, that um, is really who we are. And when we show up in different situations, we know that we're always going to at least hit this standard, right? Because that's our bare minimum, you know?
yeah. Yeah, it's like holding yourself to a high standard that even if you miss it a little bit, you're still above where you know you're not like hitting anything lower than what you really want.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely, I really like that mindset when it comes to doing things like whether it's fighting or whether it's something else that has high stakes, as a way to give you that confidence when you're going into something that where the stakes are so high and critical that you need to be able to figure out a way to have that confidence and that daily discipline, that daily of like, here's what I know that I'm always going to be able to produce at even on my worst day. And Obviously spending that extra last time to try to, hit that extra 5% top of your peak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself heading? Like where's your peak in all of this? Is there a destination, or are
Um,
you going for the journey?
I mean, for me in fighting, the destination is definitely winning that UFC title and like holding it for a little while. Like, ideally, what I want to do is like hold it until I want to retire. So yeah, for fighting for me right now, but I always like that's definitely like the end goal. But I always focus on the next fight ahead of me because I know if I don't win that one, that it just makes that goal even further. So I know that that's kind of always in the back of my mind, but it's always like first things first, and whatever is next in front of you is what like 1,000% of your focus has to go on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We can have our long-term goals, but if we're focusing in on those short-term goals are going to help lead
Yeah,
us to that
yeah,
long.
those short term goals will lead you to the long end. If you let your head wander too much into the far future, you won't be able to stay focused on what's right ahead. And that's what I've always tried to kind of bring myself back and make sure like I stay focused on whatever is directly right in front of me, because that's what's going to lead you or pull you back from what your end goal is.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, that tunnel vision right there.
Yeah.
Mhm. So fighting is definitely where it's an individual sport. We're in there by ourselves, but all the days leading up to it, and while we're in there, the days after, we do have that support system, and it has been proven in many cases that having support is very important. Could you talk a little bit about your support system and those who've supported you along your journey and how it has aided you in your career?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like my first like main support system, obviously, is definitely my family, like my mom, my dad, my little brother. Uh, like especially me and my brother, we always trained together, and my parents were always super into us training. Like they wanted us to get into it just to learn how to like defend ourselves at first, but as they saw us like grow in the sport and want to compete, they were still completely behind us. They always saw it as a positive outlet, and definitely was. It kept us focused. When we weren't in school, we'd always be in the gym, so it's like we always had a lot of direction, and it definitely kept us focused and kept us like in the right place. So my parents were always super supportive. My dad would drive me around to all my gyms, and even my mom would come watch all my fights and watch me compete. They both loved it, and they both helped me. Like honestly, without them, I don't know where I'd be right now because of how supportive they are, and still continue to be. Um, and then my coaches too. Like I've been with the coaches I have now. I've been with them since I was like 15, 16 years old, and uh, they definitely made me grow immensely. Like Frankie Roberts, my jitsu coach, and Augie Mateus, my striking coach, and then David Cordoba, like my wrestling coach. I've been working with them all since I was a teenager. When I was younger, I hopped around a couple gyms, but I've been with them since I was like a young teenager, like high school. So they see me grow up, and I feel like we've all kind of grew up in like fighting professional together and getting to the level we're at now. Um, and then all my training partners and stuff too, even like Fatima Klein, who's currently in Invicta, she's corners me. Like she's definitely a big support too. I feel like since we're similar in age and we both do the same thing, so we support each other a lot. Yeah, so I definitely have like a couple key people that they put so much into me, and I think seeing how much they put into me makes me want to be that much better to kind of like give back to them. I feel like me winning is not just for me; it's really for all of us because of how much they put into me to get those wins. And it really feels like a yeah, it's like you're in there by yourself, but you know how much everyone helped put into you. And I think all their help and all the training we put in together gives me so much confidence when I go in there. And then obviously just having more experience now, like even my last fight, I felt so comfortable and so confident. And I know it just comes from like everybody and everything around me.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Like, it is. It really, that's the part where it really pulls on your heart. Like, you can have all the ambitions and the goals that you have for your life, but it's the heart that comes with it too, of seeing all the other people who see you and they want to help you to achieve your goals too. For me, it feels really like full circle and very complete, especially just going through life,
Yeah.
and every day can be, some days can be a fight, but we have
Yeah.
people there to support us.
I feel like I have a lot of self-confidence, everything from training, but having like all my coaches and everybody I train with and my family, like I can tell they believe in me just as much as I believe in myself. Like when I say I'm UFC champ, they're like, yeah, it's basically just like a matter of time. And I can tell they feel that way. And it makes me feel that much more confident in myself too. Cause it's like, I see it in myself, but if they see it in me too, from a third person perspective, it feels even more like validating a sense. Cause it's like, it's not them. So they're like looking at it and they're like, oh yeah, like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think having that type of like support around you, and then they're also like it's a balance too, because even like you don't want coaches that are just kind of like yes men, like they think like everything you do is perfect. Like no, you need people that like all my coaches, like they'll criticize me and they'll want me to get better, and we'll break stuff down, like break down my fight, see what I did good, what I did bad, and improve. But even though they know I have improvements to make, they still have that belief in me, and I think that that's super important too, like having people that are gonna actually help make you better while also having that confidence in you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, you're on your way. Um, I'm super excited to continue watching you strive for your dreams and doing it in such a beautiful, violent fashion. So I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me.
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
yeah.
Thanks for
So
having me.
last thing before, where can people find you to continue following your journey?
Oh yeah, all my social media is Blanchfield_MMA. Yeah, you can follow me on there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
All right. Well, it's been great. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.